Hi, welcome back to another video. Today we have traveled back in time using our time machine, and we are back in the meta of Warframe in 2015. The Synoid Simulor used to be one of the most used weapons in the game. They then went on to patch and change how the Simulor works. Back in the day, when you combined Simulor shots, they would fuse and let off an explosion. The explosion and the fusing got changed to still have the fusing, but for the Simulor bullets to explode, they would either have to stick around for 20 seconds or you had to manually detonate them using your alt fire button. You could only have a certain amount of these merged shots together as well. So if you kept spamming the bullets, at some point you wouldn't be able to fire any more of them. So you would have to detonate all of the ones that you have already sent out. Now the Synoid Simulor got sort of lost in time because its innate magnetic wasn't really used that often. Back in the day when all of the enemies were super squishy and we didn't even have steel path, magnetic was fine. It didn't really matter what kind of elements you were running anyways because everything was so weak, especially when people started combining the Synoid Simulor with Mirage, which instantly fused all of the bullets together because of your doppelgangers that were around. But due to the recent status rework, magnetic is now actually really good, and it's useful for applying electricity after overguard breaks. So the new magnetic now applies an electricity status effect after you either break overguard or shield or both. This means that, especially against corpus enemies, this is quite ridiculous. However, with the recent armor nerfs, even on just some base levels, so without going to level cap, armor isn't really an issue, especially if you slap on the extra corrosive as well. You can get the electricity procs, both from magnetic, proccing on shields from corrupted enemies or overguard. You also get magnetic from the unique trait of the Synoid Simulor. So if you have a vortex going on, which is when the shots combine, you can shoot through it to gain innate electricity damage, as well as an increased critical chance and critical damage. Furthermore, it releases a magnetic explosion, restoring 25% of your energy, as well as increasing energy maximum by 25%, which is nice, but not a big deal. Then if we slap on extra heat, we can also deal even more damage after we partially armored stripped our targets, and we have the electric proc on them, so we have heat and electric ticking afterwards on top of all of our base damage that we are dealing. The Synoid Simulor is also, like I said, it's quite good nowadays with all of these changes, but it's especially good when combined with Rifle Elementalist, which gives us increased status damage. And this double dips on any Banes, so it multiplies with the Bane mods. It's a separate multiplier. However, at the moment I'm not using any Banes. I have all of these builds for all of the different factions, but to be fair, if you are just doing base steel path and you're not staying in survival missions for like 5 hours, you do not really need the Bane mods. And having the Rifle Elementalist is just a nice sort of fits-all solution at the moment. Then for a Riven, these are really cheap. The Riven dispo is also relatively high on the Synoid Simulor for what it is today. So I managed to roll this Riven with status chance and critical chance. If you don't have this Riven, you can replace it with Hammer Shot. That's also completely fine. Then build for extra critical chance, critical damage, a bunch of status, and the elements of your choosing. So I went with corrosive heat on top of the innate magnetic. You can also do blast, toxin, blast, cold, gas, cold. Really, it's up to you. Mainly your damage is gonna come from the magnetic proccing the electricity, which stacks on the Rifle Elementalist. I'm also using Vigilante supplies just for the small chance that you up the crit tier, which is nice. It's a lot of extra damage. And then I'm running Primary Merciless because we are reloading quite often, and it's just extra base damage, which I have not modded for on this build at the moment. If you want to, you could probably, for instance, swap out the heat for the extra range with a primed Firestorm. But to be fair, it goes to 7.2 meters. It's not a huge upgrade. It's decent though, so you could use it. For instance, on base star chart, it would be a no-brainer just to switch one of the elementals off for a bigger radius. So next to the Synoid Simulor, the 2015 meta also consisted of the Staticor, which was also extensively used on Mirage. Now, the Staticor is actually really good, and people might have been sleeping on this. However, the Riven dispo is quite low, so this suggests otherwise. At the moment, I've modded it with a secondary Merciless Arcane, a bunch of innate damage, as well as relatively high status chance, just to proc all of the blast. So I'm running Blast Toxin, and it has innate radiation. But what's really crazy about the Staticor is its ridiculous range on an AoE weapon. It has a 13.82 meter range, which is massive for a secondary dealing AoE explosions. And when you charge this, and especially when you combine it with Mirage, you can just like barrage all of your enemies with a bunch of AoE damage. Even the just regular fire, which isn't charged, already has a radius with primed fulmination of 3.46 meters, which is okay. I did go for some extra fire rate because it's relatively slow, especially if you want to use the charged shot. For the Mirage build, I have 2 health shards. This increases her toughness a little bit, which is nice because she can be quite squishy. I have 2 ability strength shards, and I have 1 casting speed shard. Then for the build, I'm running growing power, primed sure-footed not to be knocked over. Don't necessarily need this if you spawn in a Dante Spectre, which you will be doing quite a bit anyway, because in the higher level missions, you, even with adaptation and extra health, you are still quite squishy as Mirage, unless you use her Eclipse for damage reduction. However, the damage increase is just way better. Build it for duration. We tank our efficiency and range because I've slept on Nourish. Primed Flow for the extra energy. Nourish is also there to provide us with viral damage, which stacks on top of all of the other stuff, which is nice to increase all of the damage that our dots deal. Adaptation for a little bit more survivability. If you don't have Umbral Intensify, either go with Precision Intensify to up your Nourish damage, or just a regular Intensify is also fine. Total Eclipse and Hall of Malevolence. Hall of Malevolence is a 50% multiplier that gets applied all the way at the end for your doppelgangers. So this increases your doppelganger damage, and after 10 kills you will have 50% extra damage. Total Eclipse actually works on your doppelgangers, so it buffs the damage of your doppelgangers. So if you cast your Hall of Mirrors, Total Eclipse will buff this damage again, so it will be a lot of extra damage that you will be getting. You get it from Eclipse itself, then it applies to your doppelgangers, then your doppelgangers deal more because of Hall of Malevolence, and this increases the Synoid Simulor damage to like crazy nuking potential basically. Molt Augmented, you can switch this out for whatever you want. Molt Efficiency is fine. I just like even more power strength for even more damage, because why the hell not? If you want to, if you're really struggling with keeping yourself alive, possibly Arcane Aegis could be good, or Arcane Guardian maybe for extra armor that we don't really have on Mirage. The armor value is relatively low. I'm using Arcane Acceleration to speed up the fire rate of the Simulor without having to mod for fire rate on it, which is nice. This greatly speeds up all of the damage amplification and the merging into the vortex and then exploding your vortex, etc. If you want to, if you like the Staticor more, you could also consider switching this around to an Arcane Velocity instead to increase the fire rate of your Staticor. So I will show this in a mission. Let's go back to a good old, I don't know, like exterminate in the void, like we used to do back in the day when we still had tiered void missions. Let's go. So we spam all of our abilities. And then basically it's an automatic weapon, so you can keep firing, and there you can see Arcane, the fire rate from the Arcane proc. So that's 90% is definitely something you will notice. So as you can see, the damage is quite ridiculous. This is Steel Path. To be fair, Steel Path isn't really much of a challenge now after all of the reworks. It feels a bit like paper, everything. So possibly some balance changes still needed, but as you see, we are just nuking the entire map here. Just spamming, detonating our shot, going around. Now, for the Staticor, this is the base fire. Still one-shots and stuff on Steel Path, which is quite crazy. But the radial attack is definitely where it's at. So a 13 meter radius, just to show you a mission, if we put a little waypoint. So that's about this. So if I would shoot there we go, we are still killing that enemy. So that's quite a big radius, especially if you have the Hall of Mirrors. Also, doubling this, you can see that we can clear entire hallways like this. With relative ease, if there's more enemies, our blast will deal more damage because it will loop on more enemies, which is why I modded for blast in the first place, to sort of get that extra damage from there. Go. For movability on the melee, I'm using the Kratos. Didn't show the build, but it doesn't really matter. The only thing you really care about is the increased parkour velocity that you have on its incarnate form, as well as the sprint speed and stuff. There we go. Yeah, guys, if you want to travel back in time, give these builds a try. I've been having a lot of fun, sort of remembering all of the times I've had in Warframe over the past 9 years already, which is quite insane. If you like this video, please leave a like on it. If you want to, you can also subscribe for more Warframe content coming up. I might be looking into some of the quirks of the new Jade weapons, see where they can be used. I have some ideas that I want to test out. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. Stick around and find out, I guess. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.